Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Rick dropping in on you. Hope everybody is having an unbelievable week. I'm going to do the best I can to get through this, but it's something that is really bothering me. I'm real passionate about the work I do in the community. I'm passionate about everything I do. I don't engage things that I don't have a deep yearning and commitment to be impactful in because I appreciate the brevity of my life. And I've come to appreciate it a lot more in recent years. And so I try to invest myself in things that I know will leave an impact and contribute to my legacy. So I focus on those things with high intensity and I give everything I have. I don't believe in leaving my potential behind. So I go hard in the paint every day. Before I get into this, I want to remind everybody that we are in the midst of a fundraiser. If you believe in the work that I've been doing, that you're aware of, that the Odyssey Project has been doing, Black Men Lead, uh, Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters, that my wife Marion runs. Whatever it is that you believe in, show some love, show some support the work we do. The link and the information to support our work is always going to be in the description box. Moving on. Look, at some point, we're going to have to seriously acknowledge our failure to protect our children in so many different ways. I can't even get into all of them right now, but I want to talk about specifically the media and primarily Black music and where it is now versus what it was always meant to be, and how it has been completely weaponized against us. Now, we are the givers of music, we are the creators of music. So much has flowed from our creativity and our natural inclination towards rhythm and energy. So much has come out of that in so many different places where we're not even acknowledged anymore. We know where it came from. But we're talking about specifically things now that's flowing into the psyche of our children. We're talking about music that they are listening to, music that's created supposedly by us for us, but controlled by entities with darker intentions. Music in the right realm is a healing mechanism. It is a healing mechanism. It is an ability to elevate. That's why it's so important what you listen to, because your subconscious is literally processing everything that you hear as well as what you see. You have the image media constantly pumping negative images of ourselves into the minds of our youth, setting the expectation of how we're going to look, how we're going to move, how we're going to be seen, how we're going to be viewed, how we should carry ourselves. And then you have the music setting the standard by way of word and rhythm into our minds. And it's literally reprogramming the mind for mediocrity, reprogramming the mind for criminality, reprogramming the mind to make it more proclivitous towards addiction. I'm telling you, I'm getting an influx of young Black males addicted, and they're addicted not to what we would normally think. This whole pill thing is something that's being pushed heavily in the music, and it's a trend thing. It's a thing that's made popular. It's supposed to be cool, but it's devastating the lives of the people that it's impacting. They're robbing our children of future by weaponizing the music. I've been saying this for a long time. You got to understand, it's not just entertainment. If it was just entertainment, you wouldn't have books like Propaganda, like Brainwashed, Propaganda by Edward Bernays, Brainwashed by Tom Burrell. You wouldn't have all the work that you get from people like Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Gerard Gribe, and myself in the volumes that I've written and submitted on the power to impact the mind. You wouldn't have people spending major corporations spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on ad budgets if imagery could not influence behavior. We know for a fact that it does. We know for a fact that the subconscious is processing even the things that we are consciously unaware of. So we know that we could have music playing in the background. Not even really paying attention, but the subconscious is hearing it, it's processing it, it's listening to it, it's running it through the anals, and it's literally setting standards. It's literally setting new norms, new standards, new ideas of what is, what should be, how behavior should be. Whatever you feed your mind the most, you become. We keep talking about what's going on with our kids, why our kids do what's going on. We are constantly feeding them a heavy dose of violence, a heavy dose of misogyny, a heavy dose of promiscuity. We look at our music. Our music used to have meaning. Our music used to be expressive of our realities. Our music used to be something that we could sit up and sink into. It talked about love. It talked about that. We spoke out. You know, Marvin spoke out against war at his song. I mean, there's so many different things you can look at, and the music was also a healing agent. It was something that when you're listening to the right music, it literally ministers to you on a cellular level. This is scientifically proven. So what happens is when you're pumping it with the opposite of what's necessary to heal, it starts destroying. So not only are you changing the way we think and how we are going to interact with one another and how we're going to move in society, and you are altering norms and standards of what's acceptable and not acceptable, changing the paradigms and the lens through which we see life, you're also on a cellular level destroying us every time we listen to it, because our cells are literally processing it. Every time you listen to that negative stuff, every time you listen to stuff that's destructive, every time you listen to stuff that sits up and gives you the impression that all you are is, you're destroying yourselves. And we're sitting by and we're allowing it to happen. We're not investing in properly preparing our children. We're not investing in educating our children. We're not investing in socializing our children. We're not investing in providing an environment in which they can be developed before they're exposed to all these nefarious mechanisms and machinations that move against them. We don't have anything. We don't have an agenda. We don't have protocols. We don't have anything in place, despite all of the efforts of certain people to sit up and warn us and prepare us. If you go to the site right now, there's an entire page that says Black Empowerment Blueprint 2.0. Everything we need. I went to anybody that was alive that was still a voice, I went to them. And I talked to them, and I got that information and I put it together. It's in one place. There's a code of conduct. You cannot have a community without a code of conduct. Protocols must replace emotion. Find anybody that has been extremely successful, whether it's racially, whether it's nationally, whatever it is, and there's a set of protocols that determine how you behave in certain situations. Because when you're going through something, you tend to be emotional based on how it makes you feel, and you don't need to be reacting to things based on emotion. You should have a strategy in place. You should know what's going to happen when this happens. You should know what you're going to do when they're not playing the right music. That should be an agenda in place. We should be empowering ourselves to go out. We're too busy spending money on stuff they own. We're constantly getting money. Even those of us who have found a way to be somewhat affluent, make a little bit of money, we keep pumping it right back into their economy. So they don't mind giving it to us. Why? Because we give it right back to them. God forbid we actually take it and invest it in something that's going to give us continuous power, so we can stop going to them, asking them for stuff. We shouldn't have to ask them to stop pumping bad music into our children's minds. We should be able to sit up and say, we're going to create an alternative. We're going to make it appealing. We're going to give them something that makes them feel good about themselves. We're going to change the things that give them dopamine rushes, because that's all they're doing. They're getting dopamine rushes off of things that are destructive. This very device in and of itself, literally, every time you pick it up and look at it, gives you a dopamine rush. They know that. They've done all the research on it. I didn't just go out and find it. It's literally tons of it, that they literally are addicted to this thing. And anything that they can pump through this thing, they're going to get it because they're addicted to it. And they know exactly where. They set you up. They know where to find your kid. Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. Oh, and Apple Music and other music, all these different spaces where your kid is going to get their content. It's waiting on them to bombard them with a negative image of who they are. And it's our responsibility, to counter that. It's our responsibility to do more than complain. I told you this the other day. If complaining is our best plan, we are planning to fail. We are going to have to, at some point in time, sit up and say, it's no one's responsibility to protect our kids but us. It's no one's responsibility to lay out a path of success for our children but us. It's no one's responsibility to sit up and say, music is meant to heal but us. Nobody but us is responsible for us. It's time to stop sitting up saying, look what they're doing. They're doing it because we allowed it. They hijacked hip hop because we allowed it. They just pretty much shut down soul and then brought in R&B and then flipped R&B into some crap nobody understands. When the last time you can sit up and say you heard 10 ballads during the course of a day on a radio show? Let's say five real true ballads. The music today isn't about love. It's not about empowerment. There's no balance in it. It's hypersexualized, hyper-violent, absolute idiocy and buffoonery. It's a misdirection of unbelievable potential into something destructive. It's not an accident. It is them protecting the future of their children by disrupting and destroying the future of ours. And we make it easy. Most of us are using those same devices to babysit because we don't want to invest the time necessary to fill our children's minds with the things they should be. We want to be friends with our kids. We want to sit up. We don't want to have to be the one to sit up and say, no, this is what we're going to do. This is what I'm expecting from you. This is what I'm demanding from you. So we just give them device and say, man, just get to the age where you can get out. We're all racing to the age to get them out the door. And none of them are going to be prepared when they get out there. You've heard me say this many times before as I stood on the shoulders of the great Amos Wilson. And this is my definition. He gave us a definition, and his definition of education is it's not education if it does not prepare your children to solve their problems. If a people has not been educated in a manner that allows them to solve their own problems, they haven't been educated. They've been miseducated. They've been indoctrinated. That's Dr. Amos Wilson. What I've set up and added is simply this: education is so much more than the attainment of academic skills. It is the empowerment and the preparation of youth to be able to grow up and go out into a world that's inherently hostile towards them and not only compete, but win. That means they need to know who they are, properly socializing them, telling them who they are, giving them a position, a place, a responsibility so that they embody it, so that they go out and understand that they carry with them a responsibility to be something more than just a buffoon, something more than just entertaining somebody else. You have a responsibility to pull the collective together in as much as you possibly can. There's an individual responsibility to collective that we are not practicing, we're not honoring. Everybody's about themselves. One of the most powerful things they were able to do, one of the most effective tools they've been able to use over the last 50 years is divisiveness. They've got us into individualism. All we think about is ourselves. And we've been trained not only to think about ourselves, but to give everybody else in the collective permission to do the same. Let me explain to you what I mean. One of the first things out of people's mouths now, and they think it's a cool thing to say. It's the most liberating thing to say. It's not my business. You live your life. I'm going to live mine. The problem is, as social creatures, that does not work. Every species has a code. Every species has a level of responsibility. In most species, if you don't operate by the code, at the very least, you're going to be ostracized and kicked out of the herd, out of the pack, out of the pride. But if you're not careful, you can literally die because you didn't uphold the code. But if you look around you, the groups that are doing well operate by a code. They operate by a code. They don't even have to like each other, but they're going to operate by a code. There's certain things that is unacceptable within the enclave. It's not going to be allowed. It's not going to be tolerated. Us, every man for himself. I can remember walking down the street as a kid, blocks and blocks and blocks away from the house. Unbelievable phenomenon here. I had probably the strictest parents in the neighborhood, bar none. Didn't get away with jack. I'm one of the few living, probably one of the most successful. And all the things they told me would happen almost happened. Did they parent me perfectly? Hell no. Abusive as hell. But there were certain things they didn't allow that I'm thankful they didn't allow, because it set a standard of how I view life. It created a paradigm for me. But here's the crazy thing about then and now. Even the parents who allowed their kids to stay out past the lights, allowed their kids to do this, and allowed their kids to do that, had kids that's drinking beer out the refrigerator, all the stuff that I didn't get to do. I could be way down blocks away from the house at their house playing, and they start doing something their mom allows them to do, and I start participating. Their mom comes out on the porch, say, you know, Miss Wallace don't let you do that. Do you need me to go around there and tell her you're around here doing that? They were allowing their kids, but they understood there's a code. You don't let anybody else's child come in your place and violate their code. Where are we at with that now? It's not my business. But the problem is we don't live in vacuums. We don't live in isolated capsules. We live in a world where we're all coming together, and the world is getting smaller and smaller as more people come into it. And you got to have some kind of code where you're working. You cannot move in this system by yourself and achieve and be safe. You have to have a code. You have to have something that protects your children, because whether you see it or not, they see your children as a threat. Every time we get proud and we post a picture of some young child, 13 years old, getting their college degree, they're on the other side going, that's a problem. They got 1,300 think tanks that are coming up with ways to make sure that doesn't become the norm, because they know more about us. They know that we're exceptional. They know we're extraordinary. They know we're phenomenal. They know what we're capable of doing if just given a little bit of leeway. That's why they have worked so hard. And we've allowed the one thing they feared the most to be destroyed: unity. J. Edgar Hoover told you, when they asked that man what was the greatest threat to national security, that man didn't say Russia. At the time, Soviet Union. He didn't say China. He didn't say the Middle East. He didn't talk about none of the Arab countries in the Middle East. He didn't even talk about Cuba down there with missiles. You know what he said? Black unity. Black unity was the greatest threat. Why? Because they saw the U.S. as a white racial caste system, but it was being threatened by Black unity empowering itself. That's why the Black Nationalist Party and the Black Panther Party had to be disrupted and destroyed, because it represented a unity and a power and an autonomy that said, we don't need you. We're about to rise up. And the problem wasn't just that we were going to become autonomous. In that autonomy, we were about to discover just who we were. Game over. Couldn't have it. And we allowed them to come in. Hip hop was the counter to COINTELPRO, but we allowed them to hijack it because we didn't understand the power that we had. We constantly surrender things that could be the very thing we need to move us to the next level. We turn it over to them and then ask them to be a part of it. Can you imagine when they were sitting in the Bronx, coming up with this wild idea about this culture that was more than music? It was poetry. It was the language. It was everything. And they were coming up and they were saying, hey, this is how we're going to move from now. This is how we're going to empower. This is how we're going to spread the word. This is how we're going to look. This is going to be our thing. Can you imagine in their minds that they would ever envision a time when their descendants or their little brothers and nephews and children would be going to white labels and asking for a record deal to perform what they created? This isn't about the fallibilities of the originators. We all have fallibilities. Some of us really need to be held accountable for those fallibilities. All of us need to be accountable to ourselves. This isn't what this is about. This is about something that was ours that we gave up. And if you look over and over again, we keep giving up these unbelievable things we're able to just come out of nowhere with. And then they take it, they put their licensing stamp on it, and then turn around and say, well, we'll charge you this much, or we'll do this, or we'll let you come do that over here. How the hell are you going to let me do something that I created? How are you going to limit me and tell me you give me a piece of something that I created? We let them hijack it. We let them dictate what's flowing through the airwaves coming from the radios. I tell people all the time, you're not broke. Your mind is shut off. This thing right here is abundant. It is abundance. It is powerful beyond measure. And they spend all their times figuring out ways to keep it at bay, to keep it settled, keep it locked down, to dumb it down. They get you focused on all the little trinkets that they keep tossing up and you keep chasing. We cannot continue to allow our youth to be bombarded with negative ideas that is hitting them in their psyche. That stuff is going down into their subconscious, being processed into repetitive behavior, habitual behaviors that produce nothing but negative results, so they can sit up on the other side and see that's exactly why. That's our responsibility. It's on us. When I was doing the Blueprint 2.0, one of the people I reached out to was Dr. Claude Henderson. And I remember my initial email was intercepted by his wife, Joanne. And she said that he's getting up in age. And this was a while ago. So he's definitely up there now because it was 80 then. And she said he's getting up in age, but he's so passionate about this thing. If you mention it, he's going to say yes. And he's not as healthy as he used to be. So I'm screening people to make sure that his time is spent wisely and that he's not going to overextend himself. I said, I understand that. It's just that I have such a respect for what he's giving us in the field that he has given us what he had. I want his insight. And she said, send it to me. I'll look it over, then I'll pass it to him. They both responded. She was grateful, first of all, that I acknowledged him and that, you know, I wasn't trying to hijack his ideas and make them my own. I don't care if my ideas are hijacked. I just want people to win. I want my people to win. I don't care whose name is on it. I just want people to win. That's the thing about me. I don't need anybody to pat my back. I don't need anybody to put my name on a billboard. The life that I've lived will speak for me when it's all said and done. What I do want is to be inspirational and instrumental in changing the trajectory of my people. And it's not easy because we don't even realize we're headed for a darn gone cliff. But one of the things that we had an impasse at was Dr. Anderson was very, very adamant about the fact that if we didn't change drastically in our economic approach, that by the year 2013, we would be a permanent underclass in the US. And I understood where he was coming from mathematically. And I acknowledged that, but I told him that I believe that there's something about us that we'll never be completely out of the game. We're falling further and further behind. But I just believed at that time that there is something about us, that's something remarkable and exceptional about us that is beyond what you can see. That says at some point in time, we're going to come out of it and we're going to stand up and we're going to square our shoulders and we're going to be everything that we're capable of being. And there is absolutely nothing or no one that can stop it. That was my belief. I don't ever believe in can't as an absolute. I've come through too many things in my life and done too many things that people said was absolutely impossible to sit up and believe that we can't. But I understood where he was coming from. I respectfully acknowledge that. But what I'm sitting up saying is we are in a place right now where if we're not careful, we're making it real difficult to overcome because we're constantly giving ground. And we're giving the most valuable ground. There's a battle for the mind of our children, and we're surrendering their minds. And without any pause, there's something that has to come to the forefront and say, no, we can't do this. We have to have solutions. I brought to you Black Men Lead, which is a rite of passage initiative. My wife, Marion, has worked endlessly with women. I counsel both male and females. We have done wraparound services for males and females where we are offering training and skills positions. But the thing is, we need to develop an economic focus and a protocol system that lines us up with the things we're supposed to be doing. It's not that we're incapable. It's not even that we're not being allowed to do it. It's that we're not doing it. You can't say somebody's not letting me do it when you're not trying. No, what you're sitting up and assuming is they're not going to let you do it. Stop asking permission from the oppressor or from the opponent or the opposer or the opposition to do something you need to do to put yourself in a winning position. I'm not asking permission for someone that's not on my team. I'm going to step out front and say, hey, this is how we're going to do it. I'd rather crash trying to win than to sit there and be stepped on being compliant. Say what you want to say about the brother, but I'm telling you, there's some things that this brother has dropped on us over the course of the years that's been unbelievable. One of the things that he dropped, and I'm talking about Dr. Umar Johnson. He stood up and said, man, I must have been 8 years ago, maybe even longer. He said that white supremacy is absolutely nothing without black compliance. Another thing he said that I absolutely agree with is that the greatest commitment that a black man can show to the black struggle is being committed to a black woman. Absolutely believe it. Neither am I perfect. I don't present myself as perfect. I've never, ever preached, taught, lectured, or engaged from a platform of perfection. I come from a platform of purpose and passion, a desire to do the best I can, to be the best I can for the things that matter to me in my life, starting with my family, then my community and my race, and on down the line, even to my country. But it starts at home and it works its way out. How are we impacting the people around us? How are we protecting our children? That's the question. The bottom line is it's going to be up to us. We're going to have to sit up and say, that's enough of that crap that you're pumping through the airwaves, and shut it down. Stop consuming stuff that does not serve you. One of the first things we're going to have to learn, stop consuming. Focus more on creating than consuming. You're going to find out the more that you focus on creating and the less you focus on consuming, the more you develop power and wealth. It's just a mindset. We've got to shift. Look, I could talk about this on and on and on, but I said I was only going to do 30 minutes. I got 30 seconds left. Look, we need to do something different. That's my challenge. Anybody who wants to step up and be a part of the think tank on how we're going to approach this outside of the stuff that I've done. If you want to go to the site, go to the site. The link is in the description box. Another way is to help us fund the programs that we have going. The link to support our work is in the description box. Look, we are not going to get there being passive. We're not going to get there playing nice. We're going to have to put in some work, and we're going to be making enemies in the process. On that note, I'm out of here. You guys have a great day.